What is up guys, this is Chrono Joe and today I'm here with a particular topic, and that is whether Bounty Hunter could be a suitable mode to play in ranked in the future. So this particular match I have here was a match where one of the opposing players decided to send me a message that said something like ready to get wrecked at the very start of the game, and I thought that made it a slightly more competitive match than it would have been normally, because normally I don't necessarily care that much about these unranked games and the result, not so much as I would in ranked anyway. Like if we lose, we lose, if we win, we win. As long as I have a good time either way, it doesn't really bother me. Because this guy sent a message at the start declaring that our team were going to get wrecked, basically, it makes me more interested in winning and obviously proving that person wrong. So it was a slightly more competitive match of Bounty Hunter, and it got me thinking as to whether the mode would be a fun mode to play in ranked Season 4 of Uncharted 4. Now I don't know if Naughty Dog have any intentions to change it from Team Deathmatch, but what I will say is that having played through all the way to Master in the last 3 seasons, playing purely Team Deathmatch does get a little bit boring after a while. Like, it feels like I've done that for the last 3 seasons, and I know that I could do it in Season 4, in Season 5, in Season 6, etc. I know that the people I play with could do it. So it feels like we're just kind of going through the motions to get to Master Rank, and then we're going back to playing other modes afterwards. It would be fun to see other modes and other dynamics played at a high level of play, and see how new strategies and new elements of the map design come out at that level of play in these ranked matches. Because for modes like Bounty Hunter, they do encourage like tactical use of areas of the map which you might not see in Team Deathmatch. There's a very defensive focus to Bounty Hunter that comes with defending your bounty. When your teammates get to make the captain, defending that player has a very strong defensive focus. That causes you to camp or strategically position yourself rather in certain areas of the map that you might not ever see in Team Deathmatch and things like that. And the same with King of the Hill. Like, if King of the Hill was the ranked game type, which I doubt it will be because it's currently in beta, play very differently to how Team Deathmatch runs. You see parts of the map, you don't see strategies, you see a new meta basically based around the game type itself. In regards to this particular game, I'm not going to say who sent me the message before the game, but if you do see me taunting, you might be able to get an idea, and if you see him taunting, you might also be able to get an idea who that might have been. I started the match off using the Spatozy because I was just messing around in unranked games before this match started, and then after a couple of deaths I switched to an MP34A, which I'm not really sure why, because I think I was doing better with the Spatozy, but especially when coupled with the Brock, because it kind of covers your primary weapon's weakness. If you have a power weapon that can cover a good range, especially when you're using Spatozy, which covers close range as well. I think they have a good synergy between the two items. But I mean, a lot of people don't think the shotgun's very good anyway. I personally managed to use it quite successfully. Like, I haven't tested it out too much in ranked gameplay because I'm a bit nervous about doing so. I don't want to throw a game for my team just because I was messing around with a certain weapon. But I think it could be effective, especially with the, I think it's the Gunslinger booster, which allows you to jump and shoot at the same time and things like that. So you can jump, aim and shoot at the same time, which means you can be quite evasive with the weapon and get a lot of damage off on your opponent. Either way, back to Bounty Hunter and its viability as a competitive game type. I think the dynamics, that the back and forth between attacking and defending, do make the game mode a lot of fun, and for the most part it's competitively valid. You both go through the same phases on either team. There's a lot of strategy to whether, like, for the 60-point bounties at the start, are they necessarily worth capturing when you might end up giving the opposing team 60 points on bounties as they kill you? Because it's like kill confirmed, where they get 10 points for a kill as long as they come and collect the bounty that appears on your corpse. So one thing you want to do is kill their captain and claim the bounty, but on the other hand, do you actually want to do that if it causes you to lose 60 points to them confirming your KOs? Now, I think that's a decent strategic element to the game type, and to have a game mode like that in ranked that makes you think a little bit more about what strategy you want to employ and how that strategy shifts at different phases of the match, I think that's interesting. I think that could be really fun. So I say that shifts at particular parts of the match, and that's because the captain that you need to kill, the captain that gets assigned, that escalates in value as the match goes on. So at the start it's only worth 60, but near the end it's worth 120. Now 120 is a lot, it's double 60, I wasn't going to say it's a lot more because that much is obvious, but yeah, it becomes a big deal to capture that bounty, and it wasn't necessarily so at the start of the game. So the dynamics of the match change as the match progresses, and also you can get a lot of comebacks and things like that happen because you managed to capture the late game bounty. So it can be really interesting. It doesn't necessarily feel that any team is out of the equation at any stage in the match. The other options really, I mean, I did mention King of the Hill, but we could also play Plunder, and we could also play Classic. Now personally, I wouldn't want to play Classic because to have a ranked game type that's so far removed from the rest of the game, I feel is a little bit purposeless. Like, it doesn't necessarily reflect your ability across the game as a whole if your ranked game type is only relevant in one particular mode. I think that would be an unfortunate choice. I think a lot of people would enjoy it because there are a lot of people that do enjoy Classic. I do appreciate that, but I just don't think it should be the ranked mode when all the other modes support a different rule set. It could also be Plunder, and Plunder is quite a lot of fun in the game. They recently made a change that made it 5v5 rather than 4v4, I hear. I mean, I haven't actually played the game type in a fair while, but a lot of people do enjoy Plunder, and that could be a fun game type to play, and it has a lot of strategy regarding the interplay with the Plunder and like passing it to teammates and things like that, and different mysticals, etc., that can be useful and helping you capture that Plunder. Now, those are basically my thoughts. I'd really like to see a different game type in Season 4 for Ranked Uncharted 4. Naughty Dog plan on supporting the game for another 2 seasons, basically, from what I saw of the Season Pass roadmap. So that'll be good. And I expect the ranked seasons to continue at least for that duration. So I expect ideally some sort of update of the rank system in the future. Every time so far they've updated the rule set a little bit, but in terms of how you gain points and things like that. And I think at the moment actually it's a little bit too easy, to be honest. I think it's a little bit too easy to progress through ranks at the moment. It's not much of a grind, and I feel like you can actually lose the majority of your matches and still make it to Master, which is a bit of a problem, I think, because it should be like a testament of skill, a testament of your achievement when you hit that Master rank. At the moment, I feel like you can just grind it out. It's a little bit too easy, in my opinion. That's just my thoughts. Now, I know a lot of people won't agree with that because a lot of people are still struggling to get there even now. I think you would have struggled more before because Season 2 was harder than Season 3, and Season 1 was harder than Season 2 because the ranking system was just stricter, and there were people doing things. I mean, one thing they did change in this season was they stopped people being able to see the list of players that they're playing against before the matches started, and that's a big deal because it stopped people dropping out just because they see a name they don't like or something like that. And that was a huge problem for people that we played against in Season 1. That made Season 1 much harder. Seasons 1 and 2 actually much harder than they needed to be, and that's a big part of why Season 3 has been a lot easier, because like any group of randoms like have to play me, you know, like they have to play me and my friends, etc. Like they might have lost to us before. I usually play with 2 people minimum and up to 4 usually, but occasionally we'll have 5, or we'll like pick some random that's in the game. But on occasion we've been playing with 4, and one of the random players that we bumped into wasn't that bad, so we sent him an invite as well, and that's a good way to find players to play with, to be honest. But yeah, that basically summarizes my thoughts on what I'd like to see for the future seasons of Ranked. I'd just like to see a new game type, really. I mean, obviously new rewards would be nice too. But I'll talk a little bit about my loadout in this particular game. I'm using the MP34A at this point with Lock and Load and Headmaster 2. I'm also using that with Scavenger and Endowment. And the reason I'm doing this is because Lock and Load 2 basically gives you a gear recharge every single time you pick up ammunition. And both Scavenger 1 lets you pick up ammunition from a distance, that means you don't have to walk directly over it, and Endowment allows you to drop ammunition when teammates die as well as enemies. So that means you're getting more gear recharges, and it means you can collect those gear recharges with a little bit of ease, basically. And then I'm also using Headmaster 2 because that gives you gear recharge every single time you get a headshot. So what I find I'm doing is I'm often getting a couple of headshots per encounter, or every now and then, and that's boosting my gear recharge. I'm also getting quite a number of kills, and quite a few allies are dying, and I'm picking up that ammunition and getting more gear recharge as well. And because of that all adding together, you find yourself getting a lot more of your C4 or grenades. In this case I'm using C4, because it uses 3 loadout points instead of 4, which means I can pack everything into this loadout that I want. But you can use it with either. You can take off Endowment or something like that, and you could use it with grenades, or you could use it with, I don't know, if you really wanted to, you could use it with something like smoke or med packs. I personally wouldn't. I don't think that has a very good synergy with this type of aggressive style of loadout, but you could use it with a different gear item if you really wanted to. I'm also using the Baroque as my heavy weapon, and the reason I'm using that is because I tend to use that with most of my SMGs, because the issue with SMGs, and the reason I don't always like using these instead of something like the FAL, is you lack ranged damage. So you can't take anyone down if they've got a position locked down, it's quite far away from you, and they've got all the angles approaching it locked down. Then they put themselves at a really strong position, and you're going to have a hard time getting to them. But if you're taking a power weapon with something like the Baroque, or maybe even the Harbinger sniper rifle, then you can negate that advantage they have by pulling out your power weapon and just downing a couple of them very quickly. I personally tend to go for body shots with this weapon. I know if you can get those headshots, you can get the one-shot headshot down, but I don't think the risk associated with that is necessarily worth it a lot of the time. Like, if you miss that headshot, then you might end up with your opponent downing you. You kind of lost the advantage of using a power weapon at all. You've wasted a bullet, possibly two, but if you've managed to miss one and then fired another one off, etc. They've downed you, so you've wasted a third of your ammunition. You can get those headshots, and if they're standing still or they're at a distance, I'll often go for the headshot just to get their instant down. But if I think there's so much risk associated with the shot that I might die if I miss, then I'm not going to go for it, basically. I'm just going to go for the two-shot body shot, get them down, and then move on to another target. But yeah, you'll see me using the Baroque here every now and again, and I often stack ammunition, especially in Bounty Hunter, because every now and again you get made the captain, and as soon as you are the captain, buy all of your ammunition that you can afford, and you get that a little bit cheaper, so you get a little bit more shots with your power weapon than you would in another mode. And I think that's quite a nice little strategic element that you can kind of factor there. But yeah, despite the initial claim from the opposing team member that we were going to get wrecked at the start of this game, we actually managed to do fairly well, and none of them really put a standout performance in, to be honest. So I was pretty happy with the game. I thought it was a good demonstration of what Bounty Hunter might play like at a slightly higher level of play, because I think they all, at the very least, most players were trying to go for the objective, which is a big difference in most casual games. It often feels like a lot of players aren't trying, especially when it comes to objective-based modes. So it was interesting in that regard, because when you have two teams that are really pushing for the objective, really pushing to win the game, it plays very differently to how it does in a regular match where they're kind of indifferent as to whether they win or lose. And I must admit, I'm guilty of the same. Like, I'm often a little bit indifferent if we lose, if it's a regular game and it's not ranked, etc. I do have quite a high win ratio, but at the same time, if we do lose, I probably still had fun, so it probably doesn't really matter, you know, like, I don't lose anything because you guys won, so, but that's different in ranked, which is why, in many cases, I find the gameplay to be more fun in ranked. But yeah, this has been Chrono Joe. Hopefully the loadout tips have been helpful, maybe some of the discussion. Please feel free to voice what you would like to see in ranked in Season 4 in the comment section, or on Reddit, or anything like that, because I might post this on Reddit. And if you do like the video, please remember to like, comment, and or subscribe. And if you dislike it, then just feel free to dislike it or comment on what you don't like about it, and maybe I can change that in the future. This has been Chrono Joe. Peace out.